For Azeroth!
Heyo, folks, Dude Dutch here, and welcome to the Retribution Paladin overview in patch 7.0. Yes, this is the second version, the second installment of this little video series, which will now be showcasing the Paladin, which of course has been altered as well. The Retribution specifically has gone for quite a few changes, with some alterations, some returning things, and some interesting new decisions. Now, the general theme of the Retribution Paladin is still pretty much the same as in the idea that you build up holy power in order to then use certain abilities that spend it that do most damage. But they have changed a few things, tweaked it, given it a few new abilities. They've changed things again, and that's fine. So let's first go over the new animation designs as well as some of the new abilities that they've got. Now you still have, of course, your typical judgment, but it works a little different this time because it does more than simply damage the single target that you go for, because it actually does more than that. Because it actually now has the bonus effect that actually applies a debuff to the enemy, which causes them to increase damage from your power spenders, as well as currently comes with a ricochet, which definitely helps with some extra cleaving, considering I have to admit that Retribution Paladin didn't really have. Now, of course, you still have Crusader Strike, which works as basically what you get, and you'll be spamming spending a lot of time spamming that attack in particular, considering this is the main damage source. Now, the third ability you've got, this one is the newest, is Blade of Justice, which is basically just an attack. It spawns a Blade of Justice from the ground that strikes your enemy, which does a significant amount of damage. Those are the holy power generators, which are of course Crusader Strike and Blade of Justice, and then one of your holy power spenders is the aptly named Templar 30. You use this and you smash the guy with a whole cane. Now, of course, with that, they have of course still added cleaving of some form of cleaving for the Paladin in the form of everyone knows this. Any Paladin knows this ability. Divine Strike has gone through changes. As you can see, it has now been changed. It actually does. It has a much more animation to it. It used to be the swirly kind of much more faster, much more fluid attack. Now you have been given a few new abilities as changes have been made. You still have Hand of Justice, which is the same, but you now also have something of a targeted skill instead of having to rely on the shield called Hand of Hindrance. You use this, and the enemy is going to be moving that quickly for a while. So that's pretty sweet. What they've also added, but this one is something you cannot cast while you're in combat, is a new ability, our new Greater Blessings. Now I was just going to take a quick look at we've got everything set up here. Not everything though. There we go. Yeah, pretty much the rest of it is just as it is. Anywho, you now have blessings, new type of blessings to be specific, which I can actually simply put in one single form because, well, you can only use them outside of combat. Now, these blessings have certain effects that are very different. They are still called Greater Blessing of Kings, Might, and Wisdom, but they work some of them work a little bit differently. They used to be stat bonuses, now they work a little bit. Greater Blessing of Wisdom places a blessing on an ally that causes them to regenerate 1% of maximum health and mana per 15 seconds. That's actually a pretty good thing, particularly for healers and ranged DPS in particular. I can see this being used pretty well on that front. Greater Blessing of Might places a blessing on an ally that gives their attacks a 10% chance to deal 30% additional damage as holy. Maybe a lot different. It used to be just this increase on mastery. I don't mind that it's now like this, to be honest. I think it's fine. And then last but not least is Blessing of Kings. This used to be the primary stat increase. Now it has been changed into creating a absorption shield. So I basically can take a few hits for a change. Not a lot, of course, but at least it helps somewhat. That would have been way more damage if it hadn't been that. I like that idea that they put something like that in. Helps a bit with the... Of course, this is going to be particularly useful in tanks. So these are the new types of blessings they've been putting into the game. Now, you still of course have with the other ones, you have of course Avenging Wrath, which is still the Angel Wing buff. Now let's get to the fun bit, which is of course the talents. The talents of course have been going through a significant change as well, so let's get through them. At level 15 you'll be getting these free particular talents. The first one we'll be going for is Final Verdict. It used to be something that was down below all the way, and it used to be a change for your Templar's Verdict. Now it simply is a passive effect that increases the damage of your Templar's Verdict by 20% and the damage done by Divine Storm by 10%. But there are more in the list. Now another one that they have added is Consecration. This is a strange one to some maybe, but this is actually a Protection Paladin spell standardly, but they've done that with other classes and with some of the other specs as well, that some abilities that are standard among one are optional talents in others. So that's basically the gist of that. It still works exactly the same. Of course, you do a lot more damage with it considering your DPS is a Retribution Paladin, so that definitely helps. Now, next up on the list was also used to be a level 90 spell, which is of course Execution Sentence. This used to work in a very simple matter of that you had it, that it was purely on cooldown based. It still has a cooldown, but it used to be a 1 minute cooldown. Now it's only like 20 seconds. Basically is now considered another holy spell. So you build up some holy power, and then you drop this bad boy on the poor bastard. Now apparently there's no spell effect on it, but that basically works the way it does. So that's pretty much the gist of that ability. Among these, any of them could fit the sort of playstyle you're looking for. Now next up on the list is the level 30 talents, which is the first of them, which is the Fires of Justice. Reduces the cooldown of Crusader Strike by 1.0 seconds and gives it a 50% chance to reduce the cost of your next damaging or holy power ability by 1. So that's actually pretty good, because this allows you to actually hold on to some holy power even when you are, let's say, so you could actually drop both two Templar Verdicts in quick succession of each other. So that's actually really not such a bad thing. Next up is a replacement for Crusader Strike called Zeal, which is describes itself like this: strike the target for physical damage, maximum 2 charges with Grand Zeal, causing Zeal attacks to chain to an additional nearby target per stack. Maximum 3 stack each jump deals 40% less damage. So basically this is mostly meant for a cleaving idea, and it is simply meant with the idea that you're much more passive as well. It still has the typical damage effects on it, but it's pretty much the gist you can get from it. So it basically makes you much more capable of cleaving than you usually do. Next up is Greater Judgment. Your Judgment ability hits 2 additional nearby enemies and always deals a critical strike against targets above 50% health. So, as you can see, it immediately always will crit on these guys. Of course, its damage is still reduced, but it actually now hits even more than it already does. So Judgment is basically the Retribution Paladin's idea of Avenger's Shield. So you have something that can bounce in between enemies. Now these haven't changed anything in comparison to the Protection Paladin. You still have its Justice, except this time it's with different abilities. Benton still works the same, and Blinding Light. As Blinding Light I have described before, you select it, and then you gain an ability which allows you to then actually both damage and blind your enemies, which is useful for both PvE. You can use this and you can actually do pretty significant damage. I am still doing rotation and out of this, but I have to admit that this has some interesting applications, particularly for both PvE and PvE combat. Alrighty then, so that's basically the gist of the Blinding Lights. Let's get on to the next one, which is all about basically the idea of one of your main damage dealing abilities, which is Blade of Justice. And the first of them is a passive called Virtue's Blade, which causes the Blade of Justice critical strikes now deal 3 times the normal damage. I have, compared to the other two, this one has to be the least thing, because this, although of course it's built on the critical strike chance, and that's not bad, it's still just a chance. So So this could be useful, but you need to be building up quite some critical strike chance to really, you know, have this pay off. So Blade of Wrath is the second in the list, which actually reduces the initial damage of it, but allows you to it also deals damage over time, which is pretty sweet if you think about it. And it actually also has also lower cooldown. So compared to the to just Blade of Justice, you just use this. And this one, although of course still has to build up some time, it cooldown way faster than the other version of it. So this definitely has some good implications, and this will probably be the go-to for most Retribution Paladins, because this one just makes the most sense of the whole bunch. And the next one is the one that changes your Blade of Justice to a hammer design, which is called Divine Hammer. Now what this is basically, it's a bit of a, let's say, you could say like a temporary lightning shield for Paladins. So Divine Hammer spin around you for damaging enemies within 8 yards for holy damage instantly, and then another. So this basically gives you even more cleaving than Paladins could have, even more. You activate this and then you start doing damage to the enemy. It's not bad, but I don't consider this to be as useful as the others, because to be honest, you can get quite some cleaving out of this. So I just don't see the point in it. So that's basically that I think this isn't bad, but it's not what I would go for. Next up of the bunch, of course, is the level 75 talents, which comprises of one in particular that I find once again a bit questionable for PvE circumstances, which is the one I will talk about later. But right now, let's get to the first one, which is Justicar's Vengeance, a weapon strike that deals a large amount of holy damage and restores health equal to the damage done. Deals 100% additional damage and healing when used against a stunned target. So again, we're seeing some combo ideas. I've been checking out the other classes as well, and I can definitely find the same thing with those particular specs and classes as well, that some abilities actually combine together to create something powerful. So let's try this ability out. Some holy power. So I'm going to Judgment, and then this, and as you can see, that's a pretty sweet deal. Now let's see what happens. That gets the stun off, then use it, and boom. That's double the damage. That is pretty impressive, and considering it actually gives back health, this one is going to be pretty impressive if you think about it. The next up is Eye for an Eye. Reduce the physical damage you take by 35%, not bad, and instantly counteracts any enemy that strikes you in melee combat for physical damage. Lasts 10 seconds. So this is basically much more of a personalized temporary retribution, or with a damage reduction. The damage reduction is not a bad thing to have, but I again don't see much use in this outside of PvP, because it really relies on you doing, of course, well, it's again about, you know, getting something back after you get hit with melee attacks. And if you're doing raiding, you're not gonna get hit that much as a DPS. That shouldn't be the case, even in encounters that involve mobs. So I just don't see the point of this. I guess I could show it off, but I'd rather first. But I don't think there's really something that special to it. I guess it wouldn't hurt. So let's try it out. So let's see if it has an effect. As you can see, it's around me. That, and it's a very simple design. It really, I just don't find this to be maybe as impressive as it could be. So that's pretty much that. So now we're going to get some cooldown so I can show the next one, which is, as I can probably already tell you the description, is Word of Glory. Now this one is returning back, it's actually been altered quite a bit considered to the original, so let me explain. Heals you up, heals yourself and up to 5 friendly targets within 15 yards for, well, for about 50%, 50k health. doesn't sound too bad. It isn't, but it is a holy power spender, just like the original World of Glory. It does come with a 1 minute. You actually have 2 charges of this, but it has a 1 minute, you know, cooldown best set. And it has changed. So World of Glory used to be like the go-to healing ability for all paladins, basically. This was the one that actually was the all-round holy power spender for anyone who played paladin in general. But this time around they have actually changed it, because it does more than simply yourself, because that is what it used to do, and now it actually heals not only yourself but everyone around you. So that's actually not that bad. But unless there's really a demand for it, I wouldn't pick it. They have basically turned World of Glory into a sort of, you know, kind of Holy Nova idea with the priests have. So it's not bad, but I'm not so sure about it. Now, I'm not showing off this one because this one is as basic as it can get. Summons your holy mount to ride for 3 seconds, increasing movement speed by 100%, usable while indoors or in combat. So this is so again, this is a paladin thing that is actually being brought to the other spec as a talent. It's a strange decision, but I guess if you want some extra speed boosting, I'm not really sure if you need it, but hey, if you want to, you can get it here. The next up on the list, I will save for later though, is an interesting little one. Next up on the list is Seal of Light. Draws upon your holy energy to increase your movement speed by 20% for 20 seconds per holy power spent. So this basically is the only way to get a proper speed boost around these days. So I'm not so sure about this. I mean, unless you really need movement speed, I don't really see the point in this that much. But just for, you know, practical purpose, I'm going to show it off to you. So you do this, and all of a sudden you gain a 2-minute speed increase. So that's not too bad, but again, it's not really something that I would consider is all that important to have. So next up on the list is, of course, the level 90 talent that is among them a passive, is Divine Intervention. Reduces your Divine Shield cooldown by 50%. In addition, any attack that will kill you instead reduces you to 20% of your health and triggers Divine Shield. Now this, of course, can only be done if your Divine Shield is not on cooldown. So you gotta be careful that you don't pop this thing and think you can pop your Divine Shield and then let this happen again, because that will not be the case with in comparison to some of the other cheat death mechanics. So just for entertainment purposes, let's see if I can get this. So he's gonna keep attacking me until I get a fatal blow, and it should. And there we go. As soon as I reached critical health, my Divine Shield is popped, and that's basically it. It is basically as have they been putting in several of the others. They've basically given you a cheat death mechanic. Some people might not like it. I don't have much of a problem with it though. I mean, it's always useful to have some extra protection just in case, and I can imagine this, if you need to, it's of course never a good idea to be really into the reckless abandon thing, but I can understand that this is pretty useful in PvE situations, in raids when the going gets tough or you make a mistake. You're forgiven a mistake, but just once. It doesn't mean you should use this as an excuse to do crazy and stupid things. Now, next up on the list are the level 100 talents, Divine Purpose, Crusade, and Holy Wrath. Now, anyone who's played probably any of the Paladin specs knows this one. Divine Purpose, basically, as it explains, your holy power spending abilities have a 20% chance to make your next holy power spending ability free. It is basically, you know, a proc chance that you can use 2 in a row. You saw maybe a few before how it works. It's a very simple mechanic that explanatory on how it works. So this, and eventually, I mean, you know, I could wait for this until it triggers, but the chances are very slim because of, well, just the case of how this thing works. So basically, as I said, there's a chance that you get a power spending. As you can see, it is here. I've had this situation on more than one account with my Retribution Paladin during Warlords, is that sometimes you get these constant proc chances and you just keep having that. So that's actually not such a bad idea. Now, the next up on the list is one that's actually a buff. It's actually an alteration to one of your buffs, which is Crusade, which replaces Avenging Wrath. Increases your damage and haste by 3.5% for 20 seconds. Each holy power spent during Crusade increases damage and haste by an additional 3.5%. So this is actually something of a buff that you need to work for to really make worth it. So you really need to make sure that you're doing this right to make it proper, to make proper use of it. So it's best to really find out if this is really your taste. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's basically what you want, whatever you more have an appeal to. Now I can't show this off, but as I said, it works very similar to, it is just a different form of Avenging Wrath. So it really doesn't really make a difference, except of course you lose the effectiveness of healing, but it is replaced with a generalized haste. So that's never really a bad thing. And last but not least is Holy Wrath, which has now been altered into a Retribution talent, which is a weird one considering it's in the 100 level, and I don't, again, only consider this to be useful in a PvE setting considering how this works, because this basically plays to a certain thing that is usually in raids not very forgiving, is Holy Wrath. And as it explains, deals holy damage to up to 4 enemies within 10 yards, equal to 200% of your missing health. Deals 50% of missing health against enemy players. So this basically asks you to be, to be reckless. This asks you to get a low health and then pop this. And if this is something you're going to ask from your healers during a raiding encounter, you're going to find that that's probably not going to work out very well for you, because this kind of risky behavior is not something that goes well with a lot of them. So I can't really recommend this as an idea for anybody who wants to play the typical kind of DPS, but just for entertainment purposes, let's see what this baby can do. So we get a little low health. Let's see what it looks like. And then we pop it, and it basically is, it's very different from the original. The other one just sent out coastal one in the area, and this one definitely changes that a little bit. But you get the gist of it, and although not bad, it's not really something that I would myself really use. So that's pretty much that case. Now I've got to say that the Retribution Paladin certainly has some more, augmentations to abilities rather than just giving more to them or just, being replacement for certain spells. But I do like this new kit design, particularly with the lack of certain range abilities with Paladins, because Exorcism was always one of the things I didn't mind, but it was a bit of a waste to have. And I think this more balanced in general for Retribution, more placed in the fantasy that is supposed to be this particular spec. And I think it actually works out pretty well. I mean, you're never really going to get starved on power. There's an idea that you need to have a good rotation to really maximize on that particular debuff that Justin gives, which is really going to change the play if you're going to play this. And I like it. It's definitely a little bit more interesting in design. It feels fresh, it feels more fluid. Again, the animation, it definitely feels way better than it used to. So I can definitely dig this type of Retribution Paladin. I'm looking forward to trying this out in Legion. Anyway, that's pretty much the wrap up on this little video. Hope you guys have enjoyed this and have seen the Paladin Retribution Specialization ability overview. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you want to see more of these videos, please hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, please leave a like. And I'll see you guys till the next video. Bye bye!